Hello everyone, thank you for joining my talk. We are going to go through this agenda. First of all, a quick introduction about myself. I'm Sandra Cantero. As they said, I'm currently working as a cyber threat intelligence analyst at Core Intelligence, and my background is in criminology. So we are going to start with the basics first. What are residential proxies, in case you don't know about them? So residential proxy is basically a service that
increase volume
that routes traffic through IP addresses assigned by ISPs to real residential households, making the request appear as they originate from genuine home networks rather than data centers. And this is very important because residential IPs in general are more trusted by website, and this means that you will have fewer blocks, smoother access to the different websites, because compared to data center proxies or VPNs, the detection is lower for residential proxies compared, for example, for data centers, which are more likely to be detected, and compared to VPNs, they are more or less in the middle. So that's what residential proxies are super interesting, because it's less likely to be flagged if you're using one IP from a residential. So residential proxies have different use cases. The technology per se is not malicious, so residential proxies are not malicious. It all depends on the user intent and the scale of the use of them. So, for example, legit uses include SEO monitoring, brand monitoring, ad comparison or ad checks, or price comparison. And on the other side, we also have abusers who can use them for credential stuffing, malicious automation, or manipulate odds and commit auth fraud. So let's move to an example to make it clear. For example, we have a marketing manager who is running an international ad campaign and wants to check if in different regions the ad is shown correctly. So instead of going to each region, because obviously he's not going to go to each region, he uses residential proxies to check how the ad shows in the different locations. And on the other side, we have an attacker who programs bots to click on ads repeatedly from different residential IPs, and this artificially inflates the revenue through fraudulent activity and commits ad fraud. And here we have an example, a documented abuse case from Bat Sushi. In this case, a China Nexus threat actor moved away from large ISP subnets just in China to residential proxy networks. And thanks to that, they were able to bypass traditional ISP-based filtering and block lists. And also the campaign scaled massively and went through this quantity of IPs to millions of IPs across lots of countries. So why this matter for defenders? Because for attackers, they provide some advantages. They provide enhanced anonymity, stealthier reconnaissance, and scalable fraud and automation. And for defenders, this means that traditional IP-based controls are not effective anymore. We have to move to behavioral analysis. The attacks become harder to attribute because, as I was saying, they enhance anonymity. And also, since consumer devices are compromised, they become part of the malicious infrastructure with the consequences this might have for the end users. So, because residential proxies are widely used, there's a whole business around them. We have the most reputable providers who typically sell them via subscription or pay per gigabyte. Okay.
Sorry, this is the fault of the microphones, not you. Sorry. Okay, speak.
Okay. Hello? See? Better? Okay. Sorry. They also provide a global country coverage, a large residential IP pools. The most reputable ones also include legal disclaimers and acceptable use policies and know your customer requirements. So they do some checks because they don't want anyone to use the proxies if they are going to commit malicious activities. Here we have an example of SOX, which is one of the reputable residential proxy providers, and here we can see some price plans, and next to on the right we have the global coverage this provider offers. But when we talk about business, we also have a not legal or shady business around residential proxies, which are normally offered in the underground markets. Here, the offers are normally cheap. They also normally accept cryptocurrencies or other anonymous payment methods. And they explicitly highlight on their advertisements phrases like non-KYC, anonymous access, instant activation. We will see this with an example. For example, this is an advertisement on an underground forum, and compared to the other case with SOX, we can see that the price is way cheaper, and we have a line that says that they don't really care about what are you going to do with the residential proxies. It's up to you, and they explicitly say that they don't require KYC. So now, how all these companies obtain those IPs? So the reputable providers normally obtain them via legit methods. Those include via opt-in bandwidth sharing apps, which are applications that you download and you are accepting to share part of your bandwidth in exchange of money. Then they also obtain the IPs through software development kits, based monetization partnerships, and via ISP partnerships. Here we have an example of an IP which is linked with Bright Data, which is one of the most well-known and reputable providers. And here we can see that it says that you can earn passive income while you share your device bandwidth. Here we have another example. In this case is SDK-based monetization from Infatica, and here we can see that they explain what is it about, and they also include the SDK to be embedded in different systems, Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, and they explain more or less how the monetization works. And then on the other side, we have the illicit sourcing practices. In this case, cyber criminals obtain residential IPs, normally via malware or botnet infections, via deceptive proxyware or misused SDKs. They also obtain those IPs via vulnerabilities or default credentials in ham networks equipment, and via illicit reseller ecosystems. Because those providers, the legit ones, also have some reseller models, so malicious or cyber criminals can be part of these resellers ecosystems and then resell those IPs via illicit means. And now let's move to the SDK monetization model, which is the main aspect of the talk. And this works by a provider, a proxy provider, SDK vendor, embeds a lightweight SDK into a third-party mobile or desktop app. So we have the proxy provider, the SDK vendor, the app developer, then we have the end-user device, and once this end-user device installs the app, becomes part of this residential proxy network, and this IP goes to the pool of the IPs that the proxy provider has, so it gives the clients more IPs to use. And why is this model attractive for proxy providers, SDK vendors? First of all, because it's a way to acquire IPs in a scalable way, because applications, you can obtain lots of IPs, but all the users that are going to download those applications, it's also a asset-light infrastructure because you don't have to deploy hardware or you don't need to procure a device. And you can also obtain a lot of IPs from different geographies via the apps. So how the providers normally approach developers? So they prospect some of the app stores, checking for applications that have a lot of downloads or that can be appealing for them. Then from those prospecting, they obtain the emails of the developers and then they email those developers. They also approach developers in affiliated developers networks like forums specific where developers are discussing ways to monetize apps and via general campaigns. Here we have an example from Reddit where a user is saying that ByteConnect, which is a provider, is saying that this company approached him, sending an email asking to install this SDK, and in exchange he's going to earn a passive income and that it's not going to impact on the user experience and no app, no ads. So providers normally approach the developers showing that this model is very interesting, that it's not going to cause them any impact on the end users. So it's appealing for the developers. Here we have another example from another company and another user who is saying that this company sent an email to him, and in this case the user is wondering if the company is legit or not. So we can see that even the developers have some concerns, that it's not like they really understand what is this about. And in this case he was worried about, on one side, about the end users, like how is this going to impact to the end users, and on the other side, if this is going to hijack or whatever the game. This is the email that it's from the post we have seen. So here we can see how the providers approach the developers, saying that you can earn this quantity of money per month, it doesn't affect your experience, etc. Now, for developers, why is this attractive for developers? For developers under revenue pressure, SDK-based monetization is positioned as stable, passive, and not dependent on user clicks or purchases. For example, it's more likely that someone downloads a free app that has no ads because ads are annoying. So that's why they include this, because it's not going to impact on the end user. So it's easier for them to monetize their application. Also, it's easier technically to integrate an SDK on an application. So for them, it doesn't really change anything from a technical perspective. And because in theory, the SDK providers say that they are compliant, that they follow the GDPR. So somehow they see this as a low operational risk because they think that the provider is compliant, so it's not going to cause them any issue. Here we have an example of a Reddit 2 where the developer is saying that he wanted to include this SDK because he didn't want to include ads. So it was a way to monetize without not including ads. And we have another user that is telling him that you are making the end user vulnerable. So they know sometimes that there's something shady on this monetization system. Following with this threat, we have another user that told the developer, you're basically going to turn your users into endpoints of this company. So we can see with all of this that on one point, developers want to monetize, but on the other side, they don't really understand the impact this might have on on one side on their application, and the other side of the user of their application. Let's move now to an example, because imagine you download a game because you want to spend the time on train playing a game. So you just download a random game. In this case, this game, if we check the description, we see that they don't disclose anywhere that if you download this game, you're going to become part of a proxy node. So we see this, we download it, we see this also has a lot of downloads. So in this case, it's not that you are being infected or hacked, it's just that you are giving permission to become part of these exit nodes. So we download this game. What we find is, after choosing the language, we see this notice. This pop-up notice is the first thing you see when you want to play the game. So no one else of us normally read the terms of service and conditions. So what we will normally do is click OK. But if we go to the terms and conditions, we will see that this leads to this website, which is developer's website. And here, if you scroll down, you will see this part in which it states that if you download this app and you play this app, you are going to become part of Bright Data peer network. Bright Data is one of the providers we mentioned before. So apart from that, not only you have to go to this site, scroll down, read that, and understand that, but you also have to go to the website of Bright Data, read the terms of service, and then understand all of this. So normal users, first of all, don't read them, and then it's highly likely that they don't understand that. So now, what are the app categories that commonly include these SDK kits? So on one side, we have utility apps that can be flashlights, battery savers, because there are applications that they are always on. So they are pretty interesting to include these SDKs. We also have VPNs and privacy tools, because we see them as normal applications that won't flag alarm if they are using our network access. We also have file sharing and peer-to-peer apps. And as we have seen, casual mobile games, because mobile games allow a massive global install, so are pretty used for that. And the permissions they normally include are network access, as I said, background execution, and startup persistence. So let's move now to a case, the IPDA case. This was disclosed by Google recently. In this case, the company harvested residential IPs via monetization SDK, Trojanized Windows software, branded IP proxy apps, and preloaded Android proxy code. Then they resold this access to those IPs through multiple proxy and VPN brands that appear independent, but were all part of the shared infrastructure of IPDA. And they also had several SDKs. In this case, we can see these four, that all of them fed the IPs into a managed IPDA infrastructure, and they also saw in a week how 550 threat groups were using IPDA exit nodes. So from all of this, what are the main takeaways? So the SDK monetization operates in a gray zone, because as we see, it's somehow legitimate, but you are also being part of an infrastructure enabled for malicious purposes. Then end users become exit nodes with the consequences these have, like legally, because they can be part of a malicious campaign, but also the consequences of their IP being abused, because they can have blocks to some websites. They can also have bad reputation on the ERP. Then we have that the SDK-based sourcing has escalated the way these providers source their IPs. So it's a good way to obtain a lot of IPs from a lot of regions. So this is inflating the whole business. And the residential proxies are becoming nowadays a default infrastructure for large-scale abuse. So we see more and more how threat actors are abusing these services for the malicious activities. And thank you for your time. To answer your questions. Yes?
How would you know you're part of one? So, how would you know that your device is actually part of a residential property?
Well, first of all, there are some suspicious activity, like if the application is consuming a lot of your battery, for example, or you see. You have to check the permissions. If you see some permissions are suspicious, that, for example, for an app bank, if you see some permissions that are not according to the functionality of that app, you have to say, okay, what's happening with this, and deeper investigate on that, because maybe there's something shady there. Maybe not, but yeah, you have to. Welcome.
Are there any specific app permissions that these apps request, like geolocation?
Yeah, as I said, most of them they require internet connection. They also I don't know that they avoid the device to be constant on. They normally make the device being constantly on, and they also have let me see, one moment, maybe, okay, the receive both completed normally on the permissions. This is the most suspicious one. If you see that the receive boot completed, it's there. It's not malicious per se, but you have to check a bit more. See? Yes?
Has the sort of application like marketplaces tried to place restrictions on this type of activity?
For example, in this case, Google took action and removed all the SDKs related, all the apps that contain those SDKs. So normally when a marketplace know about something big is going on, or they regularly check that there's nothing malicious on the App Store. But you also have alternative App Stores like APK Pure, where you can download apps, and there the controls are not the same. Yes?
Is there any services companies are using to identify residential property numbers? So if you were trying to block IPs, what would you use to do that? Is there anyone new rating the IP list?
So companies that are tracking residential IPs to block them, I think Grey Noise, I don't know if you know they take action on it, and they have a way to, for example, to check if you are part of a residential, if your IP is part of residential proxies, or you have been compromised. So yes, some companies take action about that. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.